me, but here we go. So I'm taking a look back at this worm bin that I showed you last week. This is one of three of our worm bins. This is a worm composting system. We love composting with worms. Why? Because it gives us this wonderful fertilizer and organic matter, this compost material, the worm castings. They're full of nutrition, full of beneficial microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, things that we want in our soil. So that it's really good fertilizer to have, basically, where you turn your trash into treasure in a way. You make what we call black gold. The worm castings are just fantastic to add to your soil. You typically wouldn't want to grow straight into your castings, but you mix it as a soil amendment, and it almost typically always will improve the quality of your soil because of all the organic matter that it introduces. Its ability to hold water and store moisture and whatnot, but also, like I said, all the nutrition that's in there, and it's biologically alive, which is fantastic for our soil. And fertilizer is expensive, so why not make your own with basically your trash? For us, it's a win-win situation. There's just so many reasons to do it. But here, last week I showed you my little worm bin here, and so it's made out of wood, redwood, old recycled redwood boards and posts. It's got a metal mesh bottom to kind of keep everything in. So we started with metal mesh bottom, and then we actually put a couple layers of wet cardboard on top of that, and then we started our bin here. And so now you can kind of see what it's worked down to. And those are the finished castings right there. And this is just an inch or two down. So it actually goes probably about 4 or 5 inches easily deep of just pure castings at this point. So there's a lot that actually can be harvested. But today what I wanted to show you was the benefit. In the last video I showed you about covering your food scraps. So we give our worms, and I'm sure most of you know, especially all you worm people out there, hey, really nice to have you. I think I had a person or two comment in the last video, and I want to say I really appreciated that. That's really cool. It's awesome to reach out to other gardeners, other people that are interested in similar things, and I've seen their pages and they're just awesome. And so I can't wait to reach out more and be contacted more, because that's just fun stuff. Really nice people. But anyhow, for those of you who don't know, you non-wormers out there, we give our food scraps, kitchen scraps. This is an old rotting, basically softening piece of spaghetti squash that we actually was growing out of the compost pile at our school. It was on the backside, I didn't realize it, and it had sprouted from a seed and grew a little bit, and then it went to fruit even. But anyhow, so there's old vegetable scraps, celery, greens, banana peels, even ground up eggshells, all the stuff you kind of eat and throw out of your kitchen. You're usually good to go. We just don't put a lot of meats and oily things in here, not because you can't compost them, but because sometimes it brings in creatures you don't want. It gets a little gnarly, and if you have too much of that, that can be a problem. But if you do it right, you can actually compost those materials just fine. With the right amount of preparation and follow through. Anywho, what I really wanted to show you about is how effective this covering is. So at the end of one of those videos, I showed you that I moistened up some cardboard and got it really wet. And so you can even see it's still pretty moist. And I have a mister system in here that kind of keeps it moist throughout the week. And actually, look, you can even see some young worms kind of growing right there, just hanging out, kind of wiggling around. You can see they don't like the sunlight too much, so I'll put them back in there. But one of the benefits of this is that it keeps them cool, keeps them moist, and it's edible. Once it's soft and wet, they'll actually be able to eat it and digest it, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like having a super cool apartment or home that you can eat, which would be awesome, I guess, but would probably get me into trouble. I'd end up being out of shape and homeless pretty soon. Anywho, so when we pull this away to show you what it is, it also brings them to the surface. So let me see if you can get a good look in there. I'm gonna do show you an image from here, then maybe see if I can get a close-up. You see the worms in there already. What it is this drives them. There we go. Look at that. It drives the worms closer to the surface. Look at this. And so right below the surface, you can see all these worms in there. And so that's what I like about using that wet cardboard, a little bit of wet newspaper, and it covers up all that food that you really want them to eat, and it allows them to come closer to the surface and eat, and they just go crazy. Let me show you. Let me take my, let me get you a close-up real quick. So you can see right in here. So you can see it's right, but that was right below the surface. I had the cardboard on there, and I peel it back, and then look, now they're just going nuts. Let's peel it back even more. See what we got growing on here. Oh, here, this is great. You can see some worms there, some youngins. So there's offspring going. They're going to town, this old corn on the cob. Look at this. See, I said I don't put meat in here too often, but if you notice that, you can see we actually have, we lost a fish a while back and we've had for a few years, a bluegill, and it didn't make it. So I put it in here. Now the worms are going to town on it. Oh, look at that. So you can see they're going crazy. So it's really important to keep your worm bin moist, keep it cool, but also it's important to allow that water to drain as well. If this didn't have a bottom that it could breathe, and the wood also tends to breathe a bit too. I've noticed in the plastic bins when I first started out, if I had it with not enough holes or not enough ability to drain, things would get a little funky, the worms would get a little oversaturated, and the bin, you could tell was suffering because it would have other issues from oversaturation and too much water. But for now, you can see that was the benefit. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show you how we ended it last week. But like, look at all that. There's right below the surface, and that's why we like that, because the cardboard, look, you can see them kind of on there populating around it and hanging out and eating. And so, like I said, it does a few things. It keeps them cool. It keeps them moist. They really require moisture a lot of times too. As much as overwatering your worm bin and keeping it too wet. Oftentimes, if you kind of neglect your bin and you just let it dry out completely, obviously worms are not going to like they'll end up being like dried little boogers, right? You don't want that. So you'll keep them moist, keep them cool and protected. And with that, like I said, when you do that, it ends up having a profound effect. Ooh, look at that. You see all the worms right there. Look at those. Woo-wee! Going crazy, some youngins. And so that's also a good sign too, is when you have worms of different sizes, you can see this, you see the egg cases, you see the mature worms, you see these young offspring going crazy, and that's usually a decent sign that you're doing okay. Ooh, actually, look at that. Look at that. I had to show you this. It's like all worms. Woo-wee. Glad I got a glove on. This would freak me out. No, I usually don't mind it too bad. But pretty cool. So, like I said, keep them cool, keep them moist, keep them covered. And then, like for us, well, I'm pretty fortunate in that we had there's a mister built in, but we built this all with scrap. So it's just scrap pieces, and then that lid kind of helps keep everything cool, keeps all the critters out. And what's nice is that we have several of them. All right, so that's it for this, for Worm Wednesdays on a Thursday. From our garden to yours, happy gardening and best wishes. If you found this video at all enjoyable, please hit that subscribe button. Even if you didn't find it enjoyable, you can hit the subscribe button too. Bye-bye now then. Okay.